On the other hand, it may be that public sector labour forces can be persuaded to do what some private sector labour forces have done. The private sector has shown extraordinary flexibility. Wage freezes, 10, 12-week pay holidays, people going away for 3, 4, 5, 6 months and coming back to save the pay bill, taking a pay. I mean, some very imaginative things have happened across the private sector, and that's kept private sector employment up. And I mean, the challenge is, can the university sector, can the college sector, come up with things as innovative to preserve jobs? Now, knowledge economy, I want to say just a few words about this, because this is where I think the optimism is. The knowledge economy, when I first started talking about this, people thought I was, it was all about people in laboratories wearing white coats and high-tech, information communication technology, Steve Jobs, all of that, Apple, computers. Knowledge economy is a much bigger idea. The knowledge economy is essentially, it reflects the reality that close now, amazingly, more than a third of adult employment in Britain have now got level 4 skills or higher, or their equivalent. Amazing, actually. And rising. More than 45% of UK value add is in so-called knowledge-based sectors, which include the culture and creative industries, which include education and health. The numbers have doubled since 1970, and they will double again in the next 35 years. I'm quite certain that when we get to 2045, 2050, between 60% and 2/3 the UK working population will be in knowledge-based jobs, and they'll have gone through universities and colleges like yours. So, whatever the problem is going to be in the next kind of 3, 4, 5 years, the medium and long-term projection is extremely good. And this knowledge economy is about sophisticated demand interacting with the technological capacity to supply it. Think the iPad, iPod, iPlayer. Think GPS satellite, and I can now, when I go around with my iPod Golfer, I can actually map the whole of the distance to the nearest foot using my GPS navigation. Think of the way cars are customized, the clothes you wear, your haircuts, the soap you use, the perfumes you use. That's knowledge economy. And there's no going back. There's going to be much more of it in the next 30, 40 years than there is now. And the intangibles, which again you are in, have doubled as a share of GDP, and they now exceed investment in intangibles, and now exceed investment in intangibles. And that's to say, people are spending much more money on education, brand equity, non-research design, non-research R&D, all that kind of thing, than they did 35 years ago. Advertising, design, architecture, television, publishing, media. These are our growing sectors because they are essential adjuncts to the demand side of this knowledge economy, in the same way that the provision of scientific technological kind of capacity is the other side of it. I can spend a lot of time talking about this, but just please take it from me. That's the look at the left. Only excuse me. Only 7% of the loss of employment in the last 18 months has come from knowledge-based jobs. 84% of this has come from unskilled and non-knowledge-based jobs. That's the diagram on your left. This recession has been hitting not yet the public sector. It's been hitting non-knowledge private sector people, generally speaking, outside the southeast, southwest, and south of England. That's who's been taking the brunt of it. And knowledge workers have been deterred by their employers because they don't want to sack them, because they're hard to replace in 2 or 3 years' time when you need them again. And so that everything has been done to try and hold on to them. So that's another piece of evidence. If you think that this is slightly, airy-fairy, that's evidence for you. It's incredible, I think, incredible. Here's another 2 pieces of evidence. Recovery from the 1980s. The top red line describes the knowledge sectors. Look at that. Led us out of the 80s recession. Look at that. Led us out of the 90s recession. I can guarantee you that it'll be the knowledge economy that leads us out of the that'll be the right. When we do this, when I give this presentation in 2021, if I'm still here, I'll be able to show you a graph showing that it's the knowledge-based sectors that drove the British economy out of recession in the 2010s. And I can tell you it won't be the financial services sector that'll be the dynamic component. It'll be things like the cultural and creative industries, ICT, telecoms, business services, digitalization, green jobs. That'll be the area. Those will be the areas which have actually driven the recovery. We know that. Must be. Now, I just want to say a bit of word. I mean, a number of people around this. It's a creative way under which this is also being done. So I thought I'd just put a little bit up about this. Notice how big, in relation to GDP, the cultural industries are in the UK. Where the left-hand bar, we've developed via the BBC, the Arts Council, big arm's length and consistent investment in the cultural core. And we've developed a whole series of industries, creative industries around the cultural core, related to what's the activity in the cultural core, which have been feeding off the big rise in intangibles, and that has created, potential kind of dissemination of creative innovation to the wider economy. And when I wrote "Staying Ahead" for the government 3 years ago, did this little thing here for the in "Staying Ahead." Is this? I mean, if you don't want to talk about the cultural areas, I won't, because we've got limited time. Should I do this or just spin through it quickly? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You can't read the small print. Don't worry about it. We called this the bullseye. This in the centre. I mean, by the way, Britain's got 5 or 6 key sectors: high-tech manufacturing, strong; ICT, strong; health, strong; education, strong; cultural and creative industries, strong. These are very strong sectors we're talking about. Business services, strong; financial services, formerly strong. You all know the story. So this is one of the, we're talking about we're trying to understand what makes one of the big 6 sectors in our economy tick, and we don't know much about it actually. And this was an attempt conceptually. I mean, you kind of know what goes on in health, and you know what goes on in high-tech manufacturing. I mean, we can all get it. But what goes on in these creative industries? I mean, why is design growing as it is? Why is advertising growing as it is? What's happening? Why is independent television production such a big story? And London, of course, is the global capital of the creative industries. You think the nearest rivals are kind of LA and New York, but there's more going on in London. So talking about Thames Gateway, it's a big, big story. So you better get your brain around what's going on and why, and how you might locate it with it. And I should be sort of a bit aggressive. I feel we're in tough times. In the core, as we expressed it then, there's kind of acts of origination of expressive value. That's the a creative act is an act of origination of expressive value. You can copyright it. That was the definition in English common law. And what's going on in the core here are things like painting a picture, coming up with a film score, writing a piece of music, running a piece of software. That's going on in the core. And it's purely creative, and much of it doesn't have to be marketized. Then outside it, you've got the creative industries, who are partly, they're an act of origination, they're copywriting, but they've also got to make it work. I was with David Kester, who runs the Design Council yesterday. And they had this kind of design bugs out in the National Health Service, showing me this extraordinary way design, and amazingly beautiful things. I mean, I've never seen a more beautiful commode. But bloody cheap, and extraordinarily kind of preserving of old people's dignity, and very easy to clean. And what they were doing was they were using kind of sheer creativity as designers to kind of lower the cost base of the NHS. I mean, and it's a really extraordinary and exciting thing when you see it. And similarly with architecture, how space is designed, and similarly with advertising, how... And of course there's been a lot of demand for all of this because of the growth of intangibles. Now, questions. If you're running a